Marching forward, up next, we have a panel discussion on a topic that directly or indirectly affects everybody: sustainable agriculture. We've slowly come to terms with the fact that there are limits of natural resources, and constant pollution of air, water, and soil has amplified the much needed efforts towards sustainable farming. Let's understand the subject and the opportunities that lie ahead in this panel. Please join me in welcoming our phenomenal set of panelists. First up, Adi Vagman, founder and managing partner at AgriNation Venture Capital. Welcome. Dr.Praveen Rao, Vice-Chancellor, Professor at Jayashankar, Telangana State Agricultural University. Welcome, sir. Mr. Srikant Suryanarayan, MD, Iska Farms. Welcome. Dr. G.V. Ramanjeneluyu, founder at Center for Sustainable Agriculture. And moderating this session is Dr. Ganesh Ramamurthy. Allow me to share a little bit more about this esteemed moderator. Dr. Ganesh Ramamurthy is Chief Operating Officer at National Commodities Management Services Limited. He is the president of Elect AOAC India section. He is a food safety evangelist, imparting skills based on learning and training. Ganesh Ramamurthy's previous positions at NCML include Head of Testing and Certification and Crop Weather Intelligence. Welcome, panelists, and over to you, Mr. Ramamurthy.
Very good evening to one and all, and it's a great privilege to be in the midst of very great personalities, right from a Vice-Chancellor of a agricultural university to a practicing sustainable agriculture, Dr. Ramanjeneluyu, Adi Vagman, who is a venture capitalist, and Srikant in the form of the entrepreneur who runs his Iska farms. So happy to have you all here. And then today, the topic of a discussion is to look at sustainable agriculture and how sustainable agriculture can shape the future in terms of having to look at the three vital things with respect to A, agricultural productivity, B, bringing about economic viability, C, looking at the social equity. Now, I take the privilege of introducing Adi Vagman, who is a founder and managing partner of AgriNation VC. And she has spent a lot of years in management roles, among them heading the business development for Coffee Joe. And she has been invested in the Bioscience, a company from editing. Can I look upon Adi Vagman to give her introductory?
I can't hear you.
Can you give a few introductory starting points for the panel session?
Yes, sure. So thank you very much for inviting me to this really important and respectable panel. Do you wish to get a full view on the subject or about myself?
You could quickly start, take a minute. The idea is to give a quick introduction by yourself for a minute, each of you. Then we start the panel. Okay, so that the context setting is there and the audience have an idea of where we are coming from.
Okay. So hello, everyone. I'm an entrepreneur and investor in the field for agtech and foodtech for the last decade. Started a few companies in the field. One is Tropic Bioscience, which is a world leader in genome editing for tropic crops, mainly coffee, banana, and rice. The other one is Stay Labs. It's a nutrition platform for pets, mainly aimed for the US market. In between, I did several more investments. I'm one of Israel pioneers in the field of agri-tech, leading here the community of investor and entrepreneur, and always happy to engage with people from around the world. I want this one of the most important subjects, in my opinion, for the future of all of us. Thank you, Ganesh.
Thank you. Dr. Praveen Rao, can you give the context setting for a minute?
Yeah. Good evening, all the my fellow panelists, and as well as respected Ganesh Ramamurthy garu. I am basically a farmer and farmer's son, and an irrigation agronomist, having connected to the farming for the last 40 years or so as a grown-up child. And presently being an administrator, working for the betterment of the farming communities at the state level, shaping the farm policies, and as well as trying to build an entrepreneurship ecosystem at the university level, so that we can look at say what you call in the entire agri-food value chain, and as well as promoting in a big way. At present, about 15 agri startups are working with our Agri Hub Innovation Center at the farmers' fields. Few hundreds of farmers are connected to these agri startups, addressing few challenges that are faced by the agriculture. I think this small introduction is fine. Thank you. Thank you, Ram.
Thank you, Dr. Praveen. I think as a farmer, as a teacher, as a researcher, as an agriculturalist, now as an administrator, I think you have the entire spectrum of experience in terms of how we can sustain agriculture and also bring about sustainable agriculture. Dr. Ramanjeneluyu, can I have a quick word from you?
Thank you all. I'm Ramanjeneluyu. I work with the Center for Sustainable Agriculture. I worked as an agriculture scientist with ICR for a while, and we initiated this CSA 16 years back. And we work in Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and Maharashtra mainly, and we also support farmers in 7 other states across the country. So in about 10 states, we work as a resource organization. So we promote organic, natural farming and sustainable agriculture. The idea is in a situation where ecological sustainability and economic viability is becoming an issue, we are trying to help farmers to move and make a transition towards more sustainable production systems. And we also organize farmers into cooperatives and then link them to markets. So we work with nearly about 250 FPOs in these states. So that's a brief background of our work.
Many thanks, Ramanjeneluyu garu. It was nice listening to you and your work as Executive Director for Center for Sustainable Agriculture. And you are definitely an expert in sustainable agriculture, and look forward to hearing you in detail. Could I call upon Srikant, Managing Director of Iska Farms, to have a quick word?
Sure, thank you very much. I hope I'm audible. Good evening,
fellow
panelists. It's amazing to be here, and I'm probably the odd person out here because I'm a brand new entrepreneur come farmer who has just got into this business of agriculture about 7-8 years back. So since I don't know anything about agriculture, I went upon this journey of learning everything. And in fact, I visited many countries and learned what agriculture is all about, including Israel, including Japan, including South America. But one thing I have learned is an entrepreneur setting up a business or an enterprise in the latter half of the 2020 or after 2010 can't be thinking about a business plan without the word sustainability in it. It would be absolutely foolish, I'm using the word foolish, if the word sustainability is not there in the project report. And that is exactly what we did as part of our business plan, because we removed the word business from the entire plan and said, let's focus on everything else, which is, and sustainability, let me just end the opening by saying sustainability is not a balance sheet item, but it's part of your DNA. It's part of your business DNA. So that's how we went about in our business at Iska Farms. That's a brief introduction about what we do as sustainability at Iska Farms.
So thank you, Srikant. You have a vision for going from film to farm to food to folk, and that's what this country perhaps needs in terms of setting up a sustainable agriculture.
And life science.
Great. So I think we are done with the first round of intro. Let me begin with my own self. I am Ganesh Ramamurthy. I represent National Commodities Management Services Limited. And this was the last 16 years. What we have done is to look at the entire agri value chain, where we are there as the largest private sector warehousing company. We have a sub-service of grading, testing of commodities that arrive in us. We have about 2 lakh metric ton of space in which about 1.5 million metric ton of commodities are currently stored in about 700 warehouses. And we have a largest network of testing laboratories where we test the food, and we have laboratories which are fit for purpose. We have a small agro testing lab which tests only a few commodities, to one of the largest labs with state of art, which can test residues of pesticide or antibiotic, etc., heavy metals, and so on and so forth. So we come from a background where we look upon wanting to give a 360 degrees value to the farmer by providing him procurement services, storage services, testing services, and pledge finance services, and buy, sell on the digital platform. So we complete the cycle by having a transportation service and a supply chain management service. So we in fact, in the agriculture, one of the unique organizations where we provide end-to-end solution to a farmer, aggregator, FPO, trader, where all of these are packed together and offered to him at a unique commodity multi-link point spread across 700 locations in the country. So let's start. So to set the ball rolling, there are 3 aspects that we will discuss. The first one being the economic viability. Now, it may not be wrong that we cannot talk about today's discussion without the farmer who is in the middle of this entire connect between the earth and the human being. It is said that what we are is what we eat. What we eat comes from this Mother Earth, and that is given to us by the farmer, and therefore farmer is at the center of everything. And if I have to look at the balance sheet and the market size, what the VCs would call, now the market size by virtue of the gross value added by agriculture and the allied sector is about $276 billion US. Now this is something that is attracting everybody, and every eyeball is turned when we are talking of about $276 billion US, which is the gross value added by agriculture. Now we know these 2 seasons, the Rabi and Kharif, and we also know that the predominant commodity in Rabi would be wheat and in Kharif would be rice, and followed by other set of commodities which come in the respective seasons. But at the same time, the challenge that we have come across over the period from the economic point of view is that since such a large gross value is being added, but at the same time, in terms of the people who are engaged, is about 60% of our population are engaged in this or more. And out of which, right, more than 80% are marginal farmers. So the second part of the economic viability is whether are we able to include all the farmers in that so that it makes it sustainable for something. Farming as a becomes a sustainable proposition. And today we have moved away from the ages of suicide-led farming to now people are demanding, people are asking, and we also have an economy which does a lot of subsidies and a lot of programs. And I would think that Dr. Ramanjeneluyu will touch upon your participative guarantee schemes and your Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojanas, which actually bring in the right kind of sustainable agriculture in theory, while the practicing farmers in you will tell us what is happening actually. So the trends with respect to economic conditions are that we know that we are importers of large number of agri-commodities. We are deficient in protein, that is pulses, and we are also deficient in oil seeds. And therefore, there is every need for the agricultural productivity and production of these kinds of commodities to be expanded. So we have luckily about 100 ICAR research institutions, and even recently more than 4,000 varieties of various crop products have been, crop varieties have been released. And till recently, we had some 32 varieties released by the Prime Minister very recently, which again are resilient to climate change, coming to the sustainability part of it. Number 2, they are also full of nutrition. So we have varieties today which are actually coming, which are fortified, which are nutrient yoked, whereas they are also resilient to the vagaries of climate with higher temperature rise and unseasonal rains and large periods of dry days, so on and so forth. So having said all this, that the link between having a gross value added in terms of dollar terms to looking at how the number of people who could be included in this entire party of gross value that is being added, and number three, what impact that is brings into the Mother Earth in terms of environment and upkeep the integrity of the environment. Now, this is the journey that we want to tread, and how technologies in terms of what Adi Vagman said, that she's investing on companies who are coming out with technologies, right, which can increase the productivity, but no cost to environment. So, no cost to environment, increasing viability, inclusiveness is the resultant sustainable agriculture. Now, can we do it? Yes. What are the drivers? Yes. That is what is the ball set for, and we would want to hear from you, starting from Dr. Praveen Rao. We would want to hear from you how we can drive the sustainable agriculture, keeping these 3 points of view, that this gross value added is distributed, redistributed, and not concentrated into few input companies or concentrated into few large corporates, but redistributed in a fashion that it becomes inclusive. Dr. Rao.
Yeah, once again, good evening. Good context setting by Ramamurthi garu. Let me give a brief background, then I will go into the real farmers' issues and the opportunities that we have. Let me first of all be very clear to the audience and the August gathering, and as well as panelists, that India, which started from ship to mouth, and today whatever we have achieved is unparalleled in any part of the world, the success story. There is no dispute over that. Okay, in achieving so, we had some what you call problems, second generation problems that we inherited. For example, today we look at the population that we have to feed in about by 2050 is about 1.7 million, 1.6 to 1, sorry, billion. And water, today we are talking of about around approximately 800 billion cubic meters that we need to provide in 2050 will be approximately 1200 billion cubic meters. So that is the, then apart from that, we have today food wastage nearly 45 to 60% in the agri-food value chain post-harvest until it reaches the consumer. And then we also have there is a change in the food dietary patterns as well. We have done a survey in Telangana prior to COVID, in rural areas, in urban areas, and during the COVID period. There is a tremendous change in the dietary patterns, which is having a impact on the water footprint as well. As you rightly said, that whatever we are eating, people are moving towards more livestock oriented so what you call food, and what I would say. Then another important thing is we have also seen that the consumer is spending nearly 78% of his expenditure in 3 commodities like cereals, dairy, and egg, and fruits and vegetables. That is the 2017 estimate what we have. And we should not also forget that we have committed during the COP 14 that by 2030 we will reclaim about 26 million hectares of degraded land. And among the top 5 risks that have been identified in the world today, 4 belong to agriculture, are directly related to agriculture, like loss of biodiversity, extreme weather conditions, water, and climate change. And apart from that, nutrient use efficiency is also coming down, particularly nitrogen. The gap between use and application is tremendous. So for example, Telangana has achieved we are using today the highest fertilizer in the country. According to the production has also improved. Malnutrition, of course, it is coming down. We have 14% of the population today affected by malnutrition. And apart from that, though we boast of having highest production in many of the commodities, but when you look at the productivity, It is productivity, it is very low in many crops, particularly oil seeds, cereals, fruits and vegetables, and so on and so forth. We are number one in total production, but productivity wise, there are a lot of yield gaps when you compare to even Asian peers and as well as world major say what you call commodities. So this is the background under which we are. Now, say what we call, when we look at the macro level of say what we call objectives like nutritional security, food security, say what we call protecting the land, reclaiming the lands. Under this scenario, we are working. And at the same time, now we are some commodities we are producing more, some commodities we are producing less, as rightly pointed out by you. So there is a need for looking at a different policy for a set of commodities and a different policy for the other set of commodities, wherein you need to bring in value addition and so on and so forth. And there is a huge say what you call awareness that is going on. Earlier, we never used to look at agriculture and food as a connected say what you call sector. Now we see entire agri-food value chain is connected. So under this scenario, I believe that there is a need. Already many last 30-40 years, we are promoting several sustainable agricultural practices. And recently, we have also mapped how many of those sustainable agricultural practices are being used by the farmers, how many of them are not being used. What are the, and we looked at them from the point of view of efficiency. We looked at them from the point of view of substitution. For example, a person using surface irrigation, if he is adopting drip irrigation, that means he is looking at a system wherein he is improving the efficiency. Instead of using say what we call nitrogen, if he is replacing it with legume crops, if he is green manure crops, then substitution, so crop rotation. So we have mapped in terms of efficiency, in terms of substitution, in terms of diversification, in terms of system redesign as well. So when we look at these things, I think with this entire changed scenario, and with the availability of technological developments that we have today, emerging technologies, particularly IoT, say what you call satellite imaging, sensor technologies, drones, unmanned aerial vehicles, in other words, then geospatial technologies, all these enable us to look at the things in a closed manner. We were looking earlier from the top, the cone was very wide. Now today we can look at these things closely. So there is a need today to map the entire resources, a given state, agroecological condition wise, to map the resources, then crop planning based upon that, and identifying the sustainable agricultural practices, and to address these challenges what I have mentioned. And today, if you look at, I'm very clear that this what we call without partnerships, without collaborations, and in the entire agri-food value chain, it is not possible. For instance, let me tell you that today Telangana is producing huge amount of rice, but how to connect the farmers to the markets? That cannot be done by the university alone. That cannot be done by the, say, what you call government alone. So there is a need for public-private partnerships. There is a need to bring in this technology, say what you call sustainability into the, say what you call practices, then mapping of the resources, according to the mapping, according to the resources available, the technologies. And we should not be, I personally believe that as a farmer, I don't look at whether this technology is bad, that technology is bad. For me, any technology which is regenerative, which doesn't hamper the ecosystem, which doesn't hamper the environment, and which enhances the say what you call ecosystem services, which improves my economic returns, which improves my, say what you call viability, as you said, productivity, has to be done. That is how we have to look at the things now. For instance, some people talk about GM crops are not good, but I can give you several examples where these have addressed important challenges in different parts of the world. So we have to CRISPR technologies. So like drip irrigation, like say what you call ecological intensification, regenerative agriculture, organic farming. Everything has a space, but you have to look at from the point of your local conditions. I would say if we were talking local, now I would say hyper local conditions. Looking into that, so we have to look at, that is how we have to move forward. I think I will come back. We will stop here because the main, as a farmer, if somebody asks me, what is your requirement? I want any technology which has a low risk. I want any technology which will reduce my production costs. I want any technology which will give me value realization, price realization in the market. So market oriented, regenerative, technological interventions, closely looking at the things, and providing safe, healthy, nutritious food to the society. So today there is a need to create promote thinking at all levels, about the sustainable food systems, and looking at the entire system. This is what to set the things, and this is how we are working at the Agricultural University as well.
Brilliant. Brilliant, Rob. Thank you. Thank you. Could I call upon Adi Vagman to talk about the technologies? You have about 3 to 4 minutes.
Okay, so thank you. I want to touch in the aspect of how we approach investments in technologies. And of course, if you think I should touch on other points, I will be happy to. And I hear what you said about you're willing to invest in any technology that will help you make yourself more productivity. So the entire approach of agri-tech, food tech investments is to grow more with less resources. As we all know, the farmers today are constantly under pressure of a lot of things, either climate change, it can be regulation, it can be lack of water, increase in prices. And of course, in many cases, we have farmers that are quite far away from the market, where they need to take their goods and to arrive to the customer. For us as a VC, when we are looking at investments, first and foremost, we're looking more beyond technology. We're looking at the team of people that are coming to raise the money. And we're looking about how big this technological solution can be. We're looking to see that we can implement this solution in various markets, and it can solve many deep and meaningful problems for farmers. Our main challenge to evaluate technologies that are dealing with smallholder farmers, and this is specifically to India, is our lack of ability to to implement such a solution in very quick time, because our industry reward growth over revenues. So we want to see companies that are growing really, really fast. Revenues is sometimes neglected. And if we need to take, for example, smallholder farmers, and now we need to convince every farmer in the field that he needs to adopt our solution as an entrepreneur. This, of course, will take much more time. And if we take a different example, if we're working with a European cooperative that has more than 400,000 farmers under its umbrella, it's much more, the process might take a little bit longer, but once we have this cooperative, we know that we can address so many farmers. I'm aware of the fact that now in India, due to COVID, you have some changes in regulations and in the structure of your market. But for us as an investor, it's very, very important. As I said, the team, how big is the solution, and the fast growing company. Now, today, when we are looking about solution, we're looking much more deeper into sustainability. So we want to see solutions that are helping areas like rejuvenating agriculture to make agriculture more sustainable. We are looking at precision agriculture because we want to see technology being used in the hand of the farmers to, as I said before, to grow more with less. We are looking at solutions that will make as you say, Ganesh, our planet and our Mother Earth much more sustainable. So everything that's related to alternative protein. And we also look a little bit more deeper into science, into fields like synthetic biology, that probably will be the key answer to, at least in the beginning, to change or to promote much more sustainable solution other than the chemical industry. Now, with agriculture, the challenge is always the costs. Farmers have not a lot of margins, and when they don't have a lot of margins, they can't pay for high-tech solution that probably costs more, and it's all need to comes down to this calculations of benefit and what actually we can apply. The other thing, we have some challenges in agriculture that if I would approach one of my distinguished panelists who are farmers and ask them to apply some kind of new solution, usually they will allocate me about 1 to 10% of their current land because they don't want to take the risk about new technology that haven't been proven yet. So by that means, it means that for me to apply the solution in large scale, it probably will take between 3 to 4 years until I will convince the farmer it's good for him, it's not harming his field, and he can benefit from it. So although we're trying to apply as many technologies and as much solution as possible, the nature of the agriculture industry is still making some challenges in this model. This is why we always prefer models that are very lean in capital, very lean in hardware, much more software oriented, things that someone else, like at least in Israel, the government invested a lot of money in the R&D, and we only need to take it forward. So this is our approach about technology and agriculture, and I hope I gave enough information, Ganesh.
Brilliant, brilliant. So I think well taken, grow more with less, use technology is what I surmise out of what you have said. And of course, there is a challenge of people wanting to adopt new technologies. There is a mindset. You are absolutely right. And investment of huge capital in such kinds of technologies is also a challenge. So you need lean and technologies which are less which are asset light, but offer meaningful solution problems, which include perhaps your smallholder farmers also, right? So brilliant, brilliant, Adi. I think point well taken. Let's go to Srikant. Let's hear him out in terms of what he has as driver for the sustainable agriculture.
Thank you very much, Ganesh. But let me just sort of start off at a micro level, not at a macro level, because I'd like to go really in depth into the soil. There's, when we do farming and we do precision farming, we use a lot of technology. We use a lot of satellite mapping, and we have mapped out our entire 400 acres. We are actually even using technology to understand the density or the moisture in the soil so that we save even water on drip irrigation. So to that extent, we have gone in depth into water management. So while we keep the crop in the center of the business plan, what we do at Iska is we basically look at soil regeneration. We look at water regeneration. Although we use bore wells, we actively work in creating ponds. We do troughs, we do water management, we make sure that we recharge the bore wells. We are looking at the next 10 years to bring back certain streams that have gone dry in that area in the past 30, 40 years. So one, you need to think long-term and not as a short-term, I do something this year and next year I get a benefit. It doesn't work that way. We are even looking at bringing back some of the birds and the butterflies which have gone missing in that region. And we are trying to bring about a huge amount of tree cover. Like for every acre, we end up planting something like 200, 300 trees. So that's a huge number of trees that we plant, because one, we can't plant too many trees because the neighbors are going to complain because of shade. But still we go about it. We put them in our land just so that the entire ecosystem gets a benefit. And fourth, we also look at things like local biodiversity. Like Doctor was talking about biodiversity, but what we do is we work with local companies to take some of the local things, like I'm just using a word which is used in Tamil Nadu, which is panchakavya. We try and work with local companies to make sure that they can make it thin enough so that we can put it in our drip irrigation, so that we can save on cost, so that we can save on labor, and we improve efficiency. So these were not taught to us, but we learned it on the ground because we wanted to make sure we are highly frugal. We, as Adi pointed out, we put less in and we get more out. That's what we are aiming for, and it's a long journey. And we also, I'll give you a small example. We are completely organic. We don't use any kind of chemical fertilizer or chemical inputs at all. And any items being put into the plant goes through multiple stages of vetting and clearance in the company. So we are also in a place where there's a lot of weeds that comes, and weeds is the biggest problem today. And although we have designed our fields scientifically so that we can use machines to remove weeds, but at some level, we still need to use some amount of mulching, some amount of plastic. So what we are doing is we are actually putting a plastic to road converting machine in the next 6 months so that we can build roads using those plastic that we are putting in there. So these kind of thought process has to be inculcated into your business plan, in your thought process, and everybody in the team actually thinks this way. And it takes a long time because it's so easy to just buy a weedicide and just spray it and say we have taken care of the weeds. It doesn't work that way. We don't allow that. Although sometimes internally we do have this debate. Come on, it's so easy. Why do we take the difficult route? So it takes a lot of discipline in your institution or in your farming enterprise. And so my micro question here is, how many small marginal farmers can think this way? How many small marginal farmers will be able to dedicate this kind of a thought process where somebody was pointing in terms of their core objective is to get maximum realization for their crop. Whereas in my last 3-4 minutes, I didn't even mention my crop once. But how many farmers can actually think about sustainability apart from business sustainability, which is rupee ana paisa or money sustainability? So I think there is a little bit of disconnect at ground level, at a micro level, in terms of sustainability that we are talking in terms of business, sustainability that we are talking in terms of Mother Earth, sustainability that we are talking in terms of nature. These are 3 different aspects, and it takes a lot of, I think it's going to undergo unless there's a generational shift in the farmer's mindset, this thought process getting inculcated into their DNA is going to take a long time. So this is my thought process as far as sustainable farming, sustainable agriculture, sustainable business model, sustainable environment. This is my input.
I really envy you, Srikant, for you being one among the panelists here and one among the very few, I would say, who is a practicing farmer and then makes a living out of farming. And there is a continual improvement in terms of looking at how soil is regenerated, and then water is recycled, and then you are calling back the birds and the butterflies and planting more trees. I think the entire concept, and then looking at Panchakavya or what you said, I think this is enviable thing and something to emulate. The last point that you made with respect to the sustainability of a small farmer or a larger farmer, perhaps we should look at the participative guarantee scheme where farmers who are adjacent to each other, right, are in a cooperative manner looking at how they can participate and do as though there are 400 acres together. Though each of these 400 acres are maybe belonging to 500 people at less than an acre as small farmer holding goes. But I think this, the entire concept of participatory guarantee scheme is something which I will ask Dr. Ramanjeneluyu to take over and give his experience on how we can look at this as something which can give a solution and drive to sustainable agriculture.
Thanks, Ganesh. The earlier speakers have already set a context about sustainability. Just I want to add on, the challenges we face in 2020 are very different from what we faced in 1960s. So we need to look from what we can do from today to tomorrow. I think that's what is the current challenge. How do we sustain our farmers? Because nearly 60% of the people depend on farming, and certainly they are going to stay for the next 50 years in the farming. So the number of people depending on farming are not going to go down. So how do we sustain smallholder agriculture is something which India has to think about. At the same time, the limitations imposed by the nature, I think that also we need to understand. The natural resources getting depleted, groundwater, soil. So every report which came in the last 1 month, just 1 month, if you take every report said we are in a very bad situation. The ISRO's report about the Indian soils, or National Sample Survey talking about Indian farmers' incomes, or the IPCC report on climate change, everything said we are doing bad things. I think rather than doing more of this, how do we make a transition is something which is very, very critical. I think that's what the context. And this was realized, I think, in the last 10 years, there is a lot of dialogue and discussions happening across the country. And Government of India has come up with various programs, and then various states have come up with various programs. So 16 states today have organic farming policy. And today we have a couple of states which have completely transitioned towards organic farming, and which was not possible even to discuss 10 years back or 15 years back. So there is a acceptance that there is a transition is required. So that is happening. But one of the things we need to understand in agriculture is that agriculture is not viable by itself unless there is a public policy support, because the real cost of food is never borne by the consumers. So it's actually subsidized by the government. So where government invests and then what government drives and what government regulates is the two things which actually drives the model of farming. So for example, if India continues to subsidize chemical fertilizers at 17,000 crores or 1,70,000 crores per year, and then expect the farmers to make a transition towards organic farming, is not going to happen. So how do we make the this equitable is something which is important. Say we continue to buy only rice and wheat and then ask farmers to grow pulses and oil seeds is also not going to happen. So I think we need to make a big shift in the public policy. So similarly, in our own mindset in terms of yields, when we talk about productivity is not a yield increase. Productivity is also about comparing it to the natural resources used. Say, for every rupee spent, what is the income you are getting? For every drop of water you use, what is the crop you are producing? Or for every amount of nutrition you are applying, what is the amount of production you are getting? And then what is the ecological footprint of that? I think we need to make that transition, which is not happening. So like Swaminathan has rightly mentioned, we need to see growth in Indian agriculture as the income increase of farmers and long-term sustainability of natural resources. I think these two should be the critical things. So towards that, National Mission on Sustainable Agriculture is one first step Government of India has made. To some extent, it made an impact. And then PKVY program is another one which came up, Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana. So for the first time, it realized that farmers need to be supported for a transition. So per hectare, they supported about 15,000 rupees across the country. There were some good examples, some bad examples as well. I'll come to that, why these variations are seen. But I think there were good learnings which came up across the country. And when it comes to the marketing and then data management, so whenever we talk about organic, natural farming, people obviously talk about where is the guarantee. So organic certification was the model which was adopted in the country, and India made an innovation of combining both the third-party certification system plus participatory guarantee system practiced across the world, and then made into an Indian participatory guarantee system. I think it's a fantastic marrying of these two combinations together, where a group of farmers can come and give a guarantee, and which will be verified by a third party. So that's a model which PGS system brought in. And after PGS system has been established, FSSAI made a rule that from this year, a food, if it has to be labeled as organic, it should carry a certificate either as a PGS or as a third-party organic certification. Either of it is made mandatory. So either of the systems one need to follow. And while the third-party verification system is cumbersome and also follows a stringent way of verification, PGS has a simple mechanism where people also can participate and a group can certify for themselves. And I feel participatory guarantee system is more democratic and more dependable because the rest of the people also guarantee that others are following it. So that's where the participatory comes in. Whereas third party, somebody else comes in and then verifies once or twice in the farm. So that way, participatory guarantee system works well. And then participatory guarantee system is now available across the supply chain. So not only for production, but processing and food business operators can also adopt this system. And this transition, adopting PGS. Also, another interesting thing is transiting from PGS to NPOP system. If somebody gets a good market in international markets, if they want to export, they can also adopt this one. So transition from PGS to ICS system is also much easier. In 1 year, they can make a transition. So
can you conclude in 30 seconds?
Yes, the last one I'm coming to that. So PGS system is certainly a good game changer in the country, and the government of India also made a good analysis of the players in the last 5 years, and then they removed many, and then now it is implemented very strictly. So coming to that, the impact, when we talk about transition, there are various schools of thought when we talk about organic and natural farming practices. Unfortunately, some of them are also caught in belief systems and ideological rhetoric. Say, there were a lot of discussions happened around ZBNF, and then there are a lot of discussions about many other things. I think we need a very scientific approach when we talk about this transition. So that's where actually the role of science comes in, role of universities comes in. At the same time, beyond institutional knowledge, there's also people, practitioners who develop knowledge. So how do we build a relationship between these two and then take them forward is what determines our future course of action. So it cannot be just an institutional knowledge. It should also be a practitioner's knowledge. So user-generated technologies are also many. So we need to look at how these two can be married together and then taken forward. And then FPOs, on the top of that, FPOs will certainly add a value to this. Thank you.
So thank you. We have a very short time left. Let me try and conclude by saying that both from the policy and the political side, we need a momentum to build a joint vision and action plan for driving sustainable agriculture, then translate this vision into some kind of an action, which, for example, readily you would agree that the examples of PGS are good examples to look at. Number 3 is to look at how we can increase productivity, protect and enhance our resources by various means, and then improve livelihoods, enhance resilience in all that we do, and then adopt and adapt governance to all the new challenges. So when we have a policy framework like the new laws of farming, new farming laws in this country, now unless and until there is an adaptation and understanding of what the law will bring about and what is it meant to do in terms of long-term sustainable agriculture. So your example of Jaivik Bharati of PGS scheme is an excellent one, and in the long run, the technological interventions and good amount of, today we have large amount of investment coming in. The VCs are active, the PEs are active, everybody wants to have a pie in the agriculture, and as long as it is sustainable, I think the game will go on. Thank you everybody. I think we are on dot in terms of time, and especially Dr. Praveen Rao, Adi Vagman, Srikant and Dr. Ramanjeneluyu. Many thanks for articulating your points of view in driving sustainable agriculture.